Dr. Babin.
Okay.
It's hard to know where to start, really. It's so overwhelming. And it's having, to say, an adverse impact on our communities here in border states like Texas is the understatement of the year. We have a national disaster, and it's coming out of Washington, out of the Oval Office in this administration, and that's the policies that have created this crisis. And it doesn't matter whether this administration or our president will say those words or admit it. All you have to do is come to McAllen, Laredo, and border communities like it all along the southern border to know that we are burning out of control with absolute chaos. Because our commander-in-chief, whose first and most important job is to provide for the common defense of the American people, has abdicated that. We took boats up and down this river with the Department of Public Safety, where Texas is having to step up and fill the gap and pick up the slack, because we have a president who is supposed to represent law and order, who's supposed to be the chief of law enforcement, completely abandoned his citizens in Texas and all across the country. He's the standard bearer for the rule of law and the Constitution. Folks, yes, it's a public safety crisis. Yes, it is a humanitarian crisis. But I would submit to you, it is a constitutional crisis. That word is thrown around all too often. It's abused and misused. But when the President of the United States, who takes an oath to faithfully execute his office and to protect, promote, and defend the Constitution, and the Constitution is clear. The mission of the federal government is to provide for the general welfare of its citizens and a common defense for its citizens. And in Article 2, Section 3, to faithfully execute the laws of the land. Tell me, how can a president with such a sacred duty and trust from the American people abandon rule of law and the Constitution? Catch and release, no notice to appear. Instead of detaining and deporting and respecting the laws of this land and securing our border, we are releasing and rewarding, and it's sending a message. Come one, come all, it's a free-for-all at the border. And if you think that's compassionate, you haven't looked into the eyes of these families who were abused and assaulted on their way over here. We saw them last night. We know the numbers. You know the numbers. 1 in every 3 women are sexually assaulted. They're exploited. I don't want to hear the rhetoric from my colleagues in Washington about poor, vulnerable people. These are the most vulnerable. And they are being extorted and abused while we empower the drug cartels right across this river. The Biden administration and the United States federal government is not in control of the border. The cartels control the border. And it's not because we don't know how, it's because this administration doesn't have the political will to do it. So no, this isn't compassionate. Look into the eyes of the landowners who stand behind me, the private landowners who have seen more trespassing, more dead bodies, more ransacking of their property. Talk about compassion to the citizens of this community who lead in educating the children of communities in Texas, who will tell you they can't do it and do it responsibly and safely and effectively with the deluge of people coming across our border, cutting the line in front of millions who've waited for years to be United States citizens. Well, we welcome the immigrant to this country, but they must respect our laws, our sovereignty, and the safety of our people first and foremost. And nothing of the sort is happening. Nothing. Look Look, I've taken more time than I expected, and it's time to hand the mic over to a colleague of mine who's been fighting this fight for a whole lot longer than I have. And he took us off the beaten path last night where we didn't have the dog and pony shows and PowerPoint presentations. We got to see these poor folks who've made a very dangerous journey because of the policies and incentives that have real consequences. And we saw it up close and way too personal last night. And it's heartbreaking.